So in this second video looking at circles, we'll be focusing on how to work out the area of a circle. In this video we'll be going through the formula, how to use the formula to work out the area, how to have your answers in terms of pi, how to look at reverse questions or when you're given the area and you need to work out either the radius or the diameter, and we'll also be looking at some very popular exam style questions and worded problems. So to find the area of any circle we can use the following formula, and that formula is that the area of a circle is equal to pi times the radius squared. Now this is more commonly known in its more algebraic form of a equals pi r squared. So if I just make a little note, is we tend to write it like so. Obviously the x is not an x, the x represents a multiplying, and that is definitely something that is worthy of putting in your notes with the diagram, that the area of a circle is calculated by doing pi times the radius squared. Now the key thing with regards to this that's different to the circumference of a circle is that there is only one formula for this. So in order for you to work out the area of any circle, you need to first make sure that you know what the radius of that circle is. Now when you're using a calculator, which more often that you are, I would strongly recommend that you enter on your calculator r squared times pi. And the reason for that is because when students are typing independently on your calculator, although you are simply multiplying, what you don't want to do is do pi r, work out that answer and then squared, and that is completely different to pi r squared because only the square belongs to the r. So if you make it easy or you find that you're getting the questions wrong, try entering your calculation on your calculator by doing the r squared first and then timesing by pi. Remembering that you can also use pi equals 3.14, however you may lose some accuracy marks if you do that. So let me just get rid of this first and then let's have a look at some examples. So in these particular three questions we're asked to find the area of each circle, and as you can see that in the first couple of questions we've got a difference of some that we're given the radius, some that we're given the diameter, and also the change of units. Now when approaching these types of questions, these can appear on both the calculator and the non-calculator paper, in which I'll go through what that would look like. So first things first, we want to work out the area, so we don't want to be using the circumference formula. We know that area equals pi times r squared. So for this, what we then want to do is we know that the radius is 12, so that's the first thing you want to find with or start with by writing down. So then I can then start using the formulas, which is pi times 12 squared. Now if this was not using a calculator, then what I'll do is I'll leave this answer in terms of pi, so I do 12 squared, which is 144, and pi, and then the units would be centimetre squared, and that would be you leaving your answer in terms of pi. However, if I want to work out the actual numerical value of the answer, then what I need to do is type that into my calculator, so 12 squared times pi, or pi times 12 squared, and you should get the answer, if you've done this correctly, of 452.3893421, which if I round that number up, which more often that you will need to, it becomes 452.4 centimetres squared. And again, don't forget the units. We're working with area, square units, and also don't forget to state what you've rounded your answer up to. Now again, in this question we haven't been asked to round our answers to any specific sort of rounding, so you can pretty much choose. So you could get full marks just by writing what's on your calculator, but again, don't forget the units. You could round it up, or you could leave your answer in terms of pi, and again making sure that you are writing the units there. So this here is writing the answer in terms of pi, because obviously we can't multiply, no one's expecting you to multiply a number by 3.14157, so we can just use this as our answer in terms of pi. So moving on to question 2, and let's choose a less chunkier pen. So with number 2, and actually let's use different colours because I know green doesn't come up too much on the screens. So with number 2, again we've been given the radius, which is not 4 centimetres, it's 7 centimetres. And again, working out the area equals pi times the radius squared. Now the area 7 squared is 49, so it's going to be 49 pi, and then what I then want to do is centimetre squared, and then what I then want to do is work that out. So I'm going to do 49 or 7 squared times pi on the calculator, gives me 153.93804 centimetre squared, which I'm going to round up as 153.9 centimetre squared to 1 decimal place. And then finally for these questions, let's go for number 3. So with the difference with number 3 is that I'm given the diameter. So if the diameter is 22, then the radius is going to be half of that, which is going to be 11. And it's this 11, the radius is what I need to use the formula. So A equals pi times 11 squared. So an 11 squared is 121. So in terms of pi, it's going to be 121 pi centimetre squared. And then what I then need to do is type that into my calculator. So it's 11 squared times pi equals 121 pi on my calculator, which gives me 380.1327 blah blah blah, and rounded that number up we get 380.1 centimetre squared to 1 decimal place, and there's your final answer. Now again, if you're not sure on how to enter this on your calculator, so if I just load up this calculator here, let's have a look at doing question 3. So with question 3, all I need to do is type in 11 and then use the square button, multiplied by pi. So if I press shift and then you can see the little pi symbol just above this times 10 to the power x button, press equals. The calculator will always give my answer in terms of pi, and then I just press the SD button, and it therefore gives me the actual numerical value, in which all I then need to do is round up if I need to. Now if your rounding up is a little bit sketchy, just feel free to copy the number on your calculator. Like I said, at most you may lose 1 mark, which is better than losing all the marks. So again, we kind of briefed through some calculator questions. Let's have a look at some non-calculator questions. So for this, the steps are clear. So the first thing you do is write down what the radius is, which in this case is 3. And then I'm going to write down the formula. So again, I'm just going to make a little note of what the formula is. So I've got A equals, and then it's 3 squared times pi. 3 squared is 9, so it's just 9 pi, and the units are centimetre squared. For question 2, so the diameter I've been given in this case is 12, so therefore the radius is therefore going to be 6. So A equals 6 squared times pi, and then A equals 6 squared, which is 36, so it'd be 36 pi centimetre squared. Then for question 3, again I know what the radius is, which is 3.6, so A equals 3.6 squared times pi. So what I then need to do is work out what 3.6 times 3.6 is. Now depending on whatever method of multiplying you do, you should get the answer of 12.96. So then it's going to be A equals 12.96 pi metre squared. And there is your final answer. And again, always make sure you're checking the units. Not every single question is going to be in centimetres. So the next thing we then move on to is semicircles and quarter circles. So again, let's have a look at these questions. Let me just move the screen up a little bit so we've got a bit more room. There we go. So with question 1, again I'll use a slightly thinner pen. So again, first things first, we want to check to make sure that we have been given the radius, and if we haven't, that's what we need to work out. So r equals 14, which is great. So the area of this is going to be, now for a semicircle, so the area of a circle is pi times r squared. Then the area of half a circle, so area of a semicircle, is going to be pi times the radius squared, all divided by 2. And then the area of a quarter circle is going to be pi times the radius squared divided by 4. So I just need to make sure that I'm using the correct formula based on the shape that I've got in front of me. So for question 1, I'm going to be using this formula here. So the area equals 14 squared times pi divided by 2. Now 14 squared is 196 pi divided by 2. Now I can simplify that if this was a non-calculator paper, because 196 divided by 2 is 98. So the answer would be 98 pi centimetre squared. Now if I then want to work out the numerical value, then all I need to do is enter this on my calculator. And if I type that into my calculator, 196 pi divided by 2 gives me an answer of 307.9 centimetre squared to 1 decimal place. And again, if a question doesn't specifically ask you for rounding, you could leave your answer as in terms of pi. So I could leave the answer as 98 pi, which is what my calculator tells me. I can write down all the numbers that are on my calculator, or I can round up, making sure that you don't forget the units and you don't forget what you've rounded it up to. So moving on to question 2, again, here we've been given the diameter, which is 30, so therefore the radius is going to be 15, because again we always need the radius. So the area is going to be equal to, and again using the highlighted formula, it's going to be pi times 15 squared, all divided by 2. And 15 squared is 225 pi divided by 2 centimetre squared. Now because obviously 225 is not an even number, I can't divide by 2, so I'm going to either leave the answer like this, or I could type this into my calculator. So 225, or 15 squared, times pi divided by 2 gives me 353.4 centimetre squared, and that I've rounded up to 1 decimal place. And again, if I want to do this on my calculator, if I can just load it up, there we go. So let's just clear our last previous question. So what I'll do is I'll set up my fraction button. It's not necessary, but I'm going to do 15 squared times shift and pi, and then scroll down, divided by 2 equals, and you can see it gives me 225 over 2 pi, which is my answer in terms of pi. Press the SD button and you can see that it's given me the answer in its exact form. And then for a quarter circle, so again let's just work out what the formula is going to be. So A equals, so if it was a full circle it would be this, but as it's a quarter circle I'm going to divide by 4. So the question I then need to ask is, do I know the radius of if this circle was full? Yes. So R equals 25. So the area of this shape is going to be 25 squared times by pi, all divided by 4. Now if I do 25 squared on my calculator I get 625. So 625 pi divided by 4 centimetre squared. So that's the answer in terms of pi. Or what I could do is work that on my calculator. So 625 pi divided by 4 gives me an answer of 490.873851, which rounded up gives me 490.9 centimetre squared. And there is your final answer. So again, you can either leave your answer in terms of pi, in which you'll need to if a question asked you to do so, or you can work out the numerical value, and again whichever answer you do, make sure you don't forget the units, because again you'll always get at least one question in your exam that relates to the units. So let's have a look at reverse questions. So reverse questions are when you're given the area and you need to work out the radius and the diameter. Now if you do get this question, you'll only be really needing to work out either the radius or the diameter, so I'm going to show you how you work out both on any given question. So in this question 1, we know that the area is 250. Now what I need to do is, as I know the area, so the area equals pi times r squared. So here if I substitute the numbers in, I know that a equals 250 and r is what I'm looking for. So what we need to do is find r first. So I've got pi times r squared equals 250. Now pi is just a number. and I want to get r by itself, so the first thing I need to do is divide by pi. So I've got r squared equals 250 divided by pi. Now I'm not going to go onto using my calculator just yet because I need to find out what r is. So r is going to equal the square root of 250 divided by pi. Now if I get my calculator, which I'm now going to do now, and show you how do we enter this on the calculator. So what I'm going to do is reset the calculator. I set up my square root and then I'm going to press my fraction button like so. Now alternately what you could do is put the 250 pi in brackets and then square root it, which is absolutely fine. So I'm going to enter 250 and scroll down, enter pi. So it's like looks exactly how I've written, press equals, and I get 8.92. So r equals 8.92 centimeters to 2 decimal places. Now to work out the diameter, well, if the radius is 8.92, then the diameter is 2 lots of the radius. So then the diameter is going to be 8.92 times by 2, which gives me an answer of 17.84 centimeters. So if a question asks you to work out the diameter when they give you the area, you'll need to work out the radius first and then go on to find the diameter. And if it is working out the diameter, you're definitely going to be worth a lot more marks. Now if you're struggling to use the square roots, then what you could do is r equals, and it's going to be 250 divided by pi, then press equals, and let me just get rid of that r equals. Then all you then need to do is keep that on the screen or press ands and then square root the answer, and you can go from there. So, and that'll be a separate function. Your alternative is doing the square root of 250 divided by pi in brackets, and especially use this method if you haven't got a fraction button like I just showed you on the Casio calculators, and that will give you the exact same answer as what we've rounded up to. So let's have a look at another one. So here, question 2. So again, working out the area. So a equals pi times r squared. So the area is 45, so I've got 45 equals pi times r squared. So the first thing I'm going to do is divide by pi. So I've got 45 over pi equals r squared. So r equals the square root of 45 over pi. And again, or I could enter this on my calculator as square root bracket 45 divided by pi, square root, and you should get the same answer, which if I enter that on my calculator now, which gives me an answer of 3.784698783, which gives me 3.8 meters to 1 decimal place. And I don't need to use a square on this one because we're dealing with length, not area. Now let's have a look at some worded questions. Now these are questions that are very, very popular when it comes to area and perimeter, or not just circles, with other shapes as well. Now when you're asked to find the shaded area, now the shaded area is often the big shape, or shall I say the area of the big shape. So let's just get rid of that. So the shaded area is often calculated as the area of the big shape minus the area of the small shape. And that's the general rule of when you're working out the shading. Now obviously it might be different depending on the diagrams, but generally speaking, more often than not, you'll have one shape bigger than the other. So in this, here what we've got is I can see a square and I can see a circle. So the shaded area is the big shape, which is obviously the square, take away the area of the circle. So the shaded area equals the area of the square minus the area of the circle. So the first thing I need to do is work out the area of the square. Now to work out the area of the square, all I need to do is multiply the two sides together. So it's going to be 6 times 6, which is 36 centimeters squared. Then I need to work out the area of the circle. So area of the circle. Now, so I need to ask myself, do I know the radius of that circle? Well, no. I do know the diameter. So if d equals 6, r is going to equal 3. So the area of the circle is going to be pi times 3 squared, which is 9 pi. And again, you can enter that in your calculator or leave it as this. So then the final step we then need to do, so the shaded area is going to be equal to 36, which is the area of the square, minus 9 pi, which is the area of the circle. And if I type that into my calculator, now if the question asked me to leave it in terms of pi, then that there would be my final answer. And if I just highlight that, then this would be my answer. However, if I'm wanting to actually physically work that out, then I'll do 36 minus 9 pi, which gives me an answer of 7.7256 blah blah blah, which rounded up gives me 7.7 centimetres squared to 1 decimal place. And there is your final answer. Moving on to question 2. So question 2 incorporates money and area. So it says if price of turf is £3.79 per square metre. Let me just edit that slightly. There we go. So if price of turf is £3.79 per square metre, find the total turf needed to cover the following area. Now the area of this is two shapes. So here we've got a rectangle, so the total area equals the rectangle plus the semicircle. And so what I need to do is work out these two areas separately. So the area of the rectangle is going to be 8 times 18, which 8 times 18 on the calculator gives me 144, and it's metre squared, not centimetres. And so that I'd probably get a mark just for working out that. I then need to work out the area of the semicircle. Now if you remember with regards to the area of a semicircle formula, well that's the area of a full circle, so it's pi times r squared, and that's going to be divided by 2. So the radius of this, now although it's not explicitly told, that we know that this area here is 8, which means that the radius is therefore going to be 4. So to work out the area of the semicircle, it's going to be pi times 4 squared divided by 2, which is 16 pi divided by 2, which is just 8 pi. So now I've worked out the area of the semicircle, worked out area of the rectangle, so then the total area, which I'm just going to do up here, is going to be 144 plus 8 pi. Now if I type that into my calculator, 144 plus 8 pi, I get an answer of 169.1327 and a few extra numbers metre squared. Now because it's turf and it's its area, I'm going to round up to 170 metres squared because I don't want to end up with less turf. Now I then need to look at the price. So the price is £3.79 for a square metre, and I need 170 of them. So then the total cost, let's do this in red, so then the total cost is going to be 170 times £3.79, and again if I type that into my calculator, 170 times 3.79, I get a total cost of £644.30. And who would have known that grass could be that expensive? It's actually a decent price for some decent grass, that. So moving on to the next question, our final example. Now this one hasn't been shaded, so the first thing I need to do is shade this question in. Now this question does involve Pythagoras, so if you've not covered Pythagoras, then this one's going to be slightly a bit of a challenge. And there is a video on Pythagoras, so feel free to give that a watch. Now, as we talked about, in terms of the shaded area, which I've now just currently shaded in, now we need to work out the area, so the shaded area is going to be the area of the big shape, which in this case is the area of circle, minus the area of the square. And so what I need to do is I need to work out the areas of both each of these. Now to work out the area of the circle, I can see that I have been given the diameter. So D equals 10, which means that R is going to equal 5. So the area of the circle is going to be pi times 5 squared. So the area is going to be 25 pi. Now because that's not the final answer to the question, I'm going to leave this as 25 pi. So I'm just going to leave that for now. Then to work out the area of the square. Now for the area of the square it's a little bit difficult because I don't know what the lengths are of this square, and that's why I need to use Pythagoras. So to work out the area of the square I need to know those two lengths. Now I know that this is 10 and I know that these two things here are going to be the same length. So using Pythagoras I've got x squared plus x squared equals 10 squared. So I've got 2x squared is going to equal 100. So x squared is going to equal 50. And so x equals the square root of 50. So working out the area of this square, which is quite poorly drawn, I know that the length of this square is root 50. So to work out the area of the square, it's going to be root 50 times square root 50, which if I type that into my calculator, which I'm going to type in on this one, so again reset the calculator, I'm going to do 50 and then scroll across times root 50, or I could just do 2 times root 50 squared, press equals, and it gives me 50, and that's centimetre squared. So from this, what I've now got is I've got my 2 bits of information. So then the shaded area is going to be the area of the circle, which is 25 pi, minus the area of the square, which is 50. Now if I wanted to leave my answer in terms of pi, then that would be it. However, I'm going to type this into my calculator, which I'll do again on this one here. So I'm going to enter 25 pi minus 50, and I get 28.5 to 1 decimal place. So it's 28.5 centimetres squared to 1 decimal place. Now if you didn't want to work with pi, then all we then need to do is just work out what 25 times pi is on the calculator, which is, so instead of using 25 pi, I could use 78.53981634 instead of the 25 pi, and again you still end up with the same answer.